Hello everybody. We are approaching the final part of the book. It's all getting very exciting. Alex has figured out his plan. There's an underground river beneath the chipping halls. He's worked out that if he fills the gloves with gas and stuffs them in, then they might be able to blow their way out of Furnace. There have been a few complications though. He's had to tell Toby about his plan. Toby is now joining them. He's helping out. And when Alex got picked to fight the skulls inside the arena or the gym and nearly died, Donovan stepped up and told Gary, not very nice Gary, it's a bit of an understatement, about the plan. So now Gary knows. It's going to get pretty hairy. Will they make it out or not? I don't know. This is probably the penultimate part. Unless I feel up to it and just make it the ultimate part. I don't know. I'll see how it goes. Here we go. Alex is very bruised, very beaten, but determined. Back to work. What was I supposed to do? It must have been the 10th time Donovan said it as we made our slow way out of the gym. I was so battered and bruised that I couldn't even pick myself up off the ground. Donovan had to haul me and drag me from the arena. I tried to put one foot in front of the other, but even the smallest of movements made me cry out in pain. It felt as if all my joints had been filled with grit, my bones laced with razor wire. I spat out a mouthful of bitter blood and tried to tell him it was okay. What came out was a low groan. Oh. I couldn't let them kill you, man, he said, helping me across the yard. Z and Toby were waiting by the stairs and ran over when they saw us, but none of the other inmates looked the least bit concerned. Oh no, said Z when they reached us. Is that him? Of course it's him, you moron, said Donovan. Who else is it going to be? It's just his face. What's wrong with my face? I tried to ask, but all that emerged was another groan. Look, let's get him back to the cell, Toby said. You think you can get him up the stairs? You think you can help? Together, they pushed, pulled, and carried me up 6 flights of steps. A couple of times they folded under my weight, and I almost toppled over the railings. Right at that moment, the agony was so great that I didn't really care. Let me fall. Let it be over. But a few minutes later, I ended up on my bed, trying unsuccessfully to find a comfortable position to lie in, while Donovan recounted my embarrassing attempts to defend myself. He left out the deal he'd struck with Gary, eyeing me nervously as he told them that the skulls had just let me go after a beating. You were lucky, said Z, perched on the bed next to me. He reached out as if to touch my face, then pulled his hand back. You don't look it, but you were lucky. I ran my tongue over my teeth. One of the bottom ones was missing. By the way my face was throbbing, I thought that was the least of my worries. I wasn't lucky, I said, the words coming out like I was chewing a mouthful of toffee as I spoke. Donovan saved me. Donovan, said Z, looking at the bigger boy who stood by the cell door, staring out into the yard. He saved my life, I went on. Nice one, big guy, said Z. You go in and show him who's boss. There was a moment of uncomfortable silence. Then Donovan spun around and faced us all. What was I supposed to do? He shouted. Leave him to die? Whoa, said Z. I don't blame you. I'd have done the same thing if my arms were as big as yours. He didn't fight, I said. He made a deal. A deal? Both Z and Toby looked worried. What kind of deal? We've got another passenger, I slurred. Gary. No way, said Z. No way, Donovan, you didn't tell him. It was that or Alex died, Donovan spat back. You want that? Well, what? I mean, we all get a +1 now or something. Z, I said. It's fine. It just means one more person. Donovan did the right thing. But Gary's a psycho. He'll tell all the skulls, and then there's no way we'll get out of here. We're all going to the hole. Either that or he'll just stab us in the eyes to get out first. This is a bad idea. This whole thing's a bad idea. Donovan slammed his hands on the bars and stormed out of the cell, disappearing down the walkway. "Leave it, Z," I mumbled through swollen lips. "He did the right thing." Z just snorted, but his expression was one of fear. If my face had been able to move at all, it would probably have mirrored it. The thought of having Gary on board was terrifying. He really would snap our necks if he thought he could get out alone. Hell, he'd probably snap them even if we made it to safety, just for fun. But I couldn't complain. The alternative was having my guts spilled out across the gym floor. "It'll be okay," I said, but I wasn't sure how much I believed it. The rest of that day I spent drifting in and out of sleep, with endless dreams of being beaten senseless. Each time I woke I thought the pain had been part of the nightmares, until I tried to move. Donovan only returned when the night siren blew. I didn't ask him where he'd been, but he apologised for storming off and reassured me that he hadn't told Gary anything about the escape, except for the fact that it would be happening soon. "He can't give anything away, and he can't do it without us," he said, as the lights shut off. I went to hard labour in the morning, even though I thought I was going to die. I didn't have a choice. Anyone too injured to work was dragged through the vault door to the infirmary, a place that few returned from. Fortunately, we were on trough duty, and Donovan sat me in the corner, happy to do my share of the work as well as his. Despite the fact that my skin was purple and unbearably tender to touch, I still managed to squeeze a couple of gas-filled gloves against it. Donovan managed to smuggle out 8, and we were back on track. It was on that morning that Donovan had a brainwave about the fuse for the explosion. He spent an hour trying to weasel off the end of one of the giant stove lighters, draining the fluid inside into a glove and filling it with string from one of the crates. He slipped the flint free from one lighter as well. "Something to spark up with," he said. "Nicely done," I muttered weakly as he stuffed the fuse into his overalls. We didn't have many run-ins with Gary for those few days. Every now and again we'd see him in the yard and he'd track us with his insect eyes, and 4 days after the fight he came over as we were sitting in the trough room. "Better not be going anywhere without me," he said, leaning over the table. "As soon as we know it's happening, we'll tell you," I replied. "You've got my word." He just stared at me for a few seconds until I thought my blood was curdling. Then he walked off. He threw another comment at us over his shoulder as he went, one loud enough for most people to hear. "I'll kill you if you try and leave without me." "Oh, he's going to ruin it for all of us," said Z when Gary had left the room. "Half the hall must have heard that." If they had, they showed no sign of understanding it. For most, the idea of escape from Furness was so unthinkable, so impossible, that they'd probably have dismissed it, even if there was a hole in the wall and a staircase marked "To Freedom." "Relax, Z," I said. "There's only a few more days." There were 8, to be correct. 8 days of fear that everything would go horribly wrong. 8 days of panic that we'd be caught, tortured, then executed in the most violent ways possible. But also 8 days of hope that we'd actually managed to break free of our prison, that we'd be able to see sunshine once again. For the next week, it was the hope that carried us. Even though I was exhausted and never fully recovered from my beating, it was the smell of fresh air that kept me going. So many times I thought I couldn't go on. I couldn't handle the stress of smuggling out any more gloves or secreting them behind the panels in room 2. But just when things seemed at their bleakest, I'd recall something from up top. Birdsong, the feel of grass on my bare feet, the sight of the sea bounded only by the horizon, and the hope would be like fuel, urging me on. It was the same for the rest of them. Where there should have been tired faces, there were always smiles, jokes instead of tears, bravery when we should have all been cowering in our cells. We pushed ourselves to the limit. By day 2, we'd smuggled another 15 gloves into the tunnel. By day 5, it was 33. By day 7, the pile was 51 deep and more than big enough to blast us out of here. Day 8 found Donovan and me back in room 2, stripped and dragging our gas-filled overalls across the rough floor to the rift. We were relieved to see the rest of our stash still in place. A couple had deflated slightly, but it looked like they were all fit to go boom. "You start slotting them in," Donovan shouted above the roar of the river. I could swear the sound was louder now, like it knew we were coming for it. "I'll get the fuse sorted." He rummaged through the gloves until he found the one full of lighter fluid. Giving it a shake for good measure, he opened it up and pulled out the string, which reeked of fuel. Tying the strands together, he laid one end by the balloons, then walked backwards and unwound the rest, the fuse snaking for several metres until it disappeared behind a massive chunk of rock. "That should be enough," he said, his head popping out from the stone. "The explosion will probably set off another cave-in and kill us all anyway." "Better that than to get any more time in the cell," I replied, struggling to squeeze another glove into the packed rift, "especially with your farts." Donovan laughed as he made his way back over. He looked at the bulging crack in the ground, then at the 20 or so gloves we still had left in his overalls. "Spares?" "Looks like it," I said, grimacing as I tried to stand up. "You want to just scatter them around?" Donovan scratched his chin and shook his head. "No, I got a plan." He picked up his overalls. "Let's get back to the tunnel." "The tunnel?" I asked, but he just grinned at me and set off across the cavern. I followed, my limbs screaming at me with every step. And I arrived at the passageway to see Donovan wedging the remaining gloves into the crevices in the ceiling. He wasn't having much luck in the dark, as they kept dropping to the floor with a wet slap. "I'm sure there's a good reason for this," I whispered. The equipment room was dead ahead. Deserted, but you never knew when the black suit was going to return. Donovan managed to cram a couple of gloves into a particularly big crack above his head. Then he turned to me. "What if we have to leave in a hurry?" he asked. "The guards will be on our tail like rats after cheese. If we demolish this tunnel after we've got through, then we'll have all the time in the world to blow the floor and get into the river." "Makes sense," I replied, nodding. I picked up a couple of gloves and looked for suitable holes in the ceiling, stretching up with considerable pain to fit them all in. By the time we'd finished, the top of the tunnel looked like the underside of a mutant cow, all bulging udders and no legs. "Moo," I said, as Donovan unwound the last of the fuse, jamming it between a glove and the wall, then running it down and out into the cavern. There wasn't much string left, but hopefully enough to give us a bit of distance before the tunnel collapsed. He tucked the lighter flint under the end of the fuse so he'd easily find it again. "So," he said, climbing back into his overalls and rubbing his hands on the material to get rid of the pungent smell of lighter fluid. "We're done. Finished," I added. "All we've got to do now is get everybody here without anyone seeing us, blow a hole in a solid rock floor, and jump into a raging underground river." "Easy," he added, laughing quietly. I couldn't really see his expression in the dark, but he suddenly fell quiet, and I could sense an intense gaze in my direction. "You don't just want to go now?" he asked. I stared into the shadows where his face was. "And leave the others?" "We might never get another chance," he went on. "What if something happens?" "Donovan," I said gently, "I know you don't mean that. You risked everything to save me the other day. I know you're not the kind of guy to abandon his friends. I know it. What did I tell you when you first got here, Alex? You don't have friends in Furness." "Yeah, right," I said. "Play the hard man all you like, but I know you're not going anywhere without Z and Toby." There was a moment of silence, then Donovan laughed. "Jeez, look what you've done to me. You've turned me into a sentimental old fool." "Come on," I said, leading the way back to the wooden boards. We'd left the tunnel so many times it was almost automatic now, and we returned to the chipping room without incident. It was only when we'd started hacking at the walls with our picks that Donovan winked at me. "So, tomorrow then?" he asked. I rested my pickaxe over my shoulder and nodded. Tomorrow. The last night. After hard labour, we showered and ate, then retreated back to our cell. Toby and Z were already there, chatting excitedly about something or other when we strolled through the door. Their heads jerked up, their faces creased with anxiety. "So?" asked Z, drawing the word out. "Guards caught us," Donovan answered. They destroyed the gloves, sealed off the room, and took Alex and me through the door. They turned us into monsters, and now we're back to eat you! He threw himself at the two smaller boys, and they jumped back to avoid him. What's got into him? Z asked, as Donovan fell onto the bottom bunk, giggling. Did he inhale some gas or something? I'm not sure, I answered, pushing Donovan out of the way and sitting on the foot of the bed. But I did know. He was drunk on hope, on excitement. We all were. Everything went to plan, though. It's all ready to go. Tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow, Toby said. Z grabbed his shoulders and shook him. Don't cave now, Toby, old boy, he said gleefully. Too late to back out. I just didn't expect it to be so soon, he replied, as the colour slowly returned to his face. Are you sure we're ready? Nope, I said. You're welcome to wait here for a couple of years, but I'm going now, ready or not. And me, said Z, adding a soft little whoop as he punched the air. So what are you going to do when you get out? Asked Donovan. First thing I'm going to do is grab the biggest burger I can find. All relish and onions and bacon. Oh, Mama, my mouth is dripping. I just want the air, I said. Give me a beach and a sea breeze and the sound of seagulls and I'll be the happiest man on earth. Z budged me over and sat down. I'm going to head home. Sleep in a proper bed for once, he said dreamily. And wait for the police to arrive, I said. Come on, Z. As soon as we're out of here, they're going to be looking for us. If we go home, they're just going to cart us straight back here and straight into the hole. Z's face fell, as did Toby's. So, what do we do then? Asked the new kid, sliding down the wall and drawing his knees up to his face. I've got nowhere else to go. We're all kids, Toby, I replied. None of us do. We just have to stick together. We'll be okay. Long as I get my burger, added Donovan, smacking his lips. What about this place? Asked Z. I mean, do we tell anyone about it? About what goes on here? Yeah, I offered. We have to. We can file like an anonymous report to the police or something. Yeah, like they'll ever believe it, said Donovan. We have to try, I added. What about everyone else here? We've got to do something to help. Feel free, the big guy said. You go off and be heroes while I sit and eat on my burger. Enough about the burger, I yelled, laughing. There's more out there than fast food. Come on, D. We'll be free. We can have anything we like. Free? Came a voice from the door. I snapped my head around so hard I thought I'd broken my neck. Standing there was Jimmy, the beanpole kid that Z, Monty and I had ridden down to Furnace with in the elevator. He was even skinnier now, his overalls hanging off him like a tattered shroud on a skeleton. I'd hardly seen him at all since that first day. He'd been hanging out with a group of kids that kept themselves to themselves. He'd walked past my cell a few times, but he'd never stopped to say hi. I guess he'd never heard us talking about escaping before. I mentally kicked myself. Anyone could have been outside, even the guards. Where are you going? He went on. Are you getting out of here? Nowhere. No, Donovan and I said in tandem. Just dreaming, said Z. Talking about what we'd do if we ever got out. You know, you must have done it. Jimmy stared at us like he could see right through our lies. Everyone knows you guys have been acting weird, he said. Rumour is you know a way out and you're not saying. Figured you'd tell me, though. We got here together, we can leave together. Ain't no way out, kid, said Donovan, getting up from the bed and walking to him. Got your head screwed on all wrong. Now scram. Jimmy kept staring at me. One more, I thought. Surely one more person wouldn't hurt. But it was one more person to spill the beans, one more to ruin everything. It wasn't worth the risk. Sorry, Jimmy, I said eventually. Donovan's right, we're not going anywhere. There is no way out of Furnace, remember? Now scram, Donovan repeated. This time he planted his hands on Jimmy's chest and sent him stumbling backwards. The boy hit the railings, but his eyes never left mine. Last chance, he said. Take me with you. I just turned away. We all did. And when we looked back at the platform, it was deserted. We spent the next couple of hours panicking. What did Jimmy mean when he said everyone knew we were acting weird? And what rumour? If the inmates were starting to suspect something, it meant the guards might be too. And if that was the case, then it was all over. But there had been no alarms, no black suits at the door, no dogs chasing us from our cells. If the warden even suspected we were planning to make a break for it, then the chances were we'd already be dead. We voted on what to do about Gary. Z and Toby figured we should just not tell him, make a run for it and hope he didn't figure out what we were doing. Donovan and I thought it was probably best to let him know. We'd made a deal, after all, and the skull had let me keep my life. Besides, he was big and strong, and he might just come in handy if things got tough. The vote was a tie, but Donovan only had to put a little pressure on Toby to make him change his mind. Physical pressure, that was, in the form of a Chinese burn. Nobody else was willing to deliver the news, however, so I ended up traipsing down the stairs. The skulls were nowhere in sight, and I made my way to the gym. From the howling inside, I didn't really want to go in, but when I told the 2 sentries on duty I had some important news for Gary, they let me pass. Inside was a bloodbath. A skull and a 59er going to work on each other with unrestrained fury. Gary was watching, but when he saw me, he jumped off his bench and walked over. "Something to tell me, little man?" He sneered. He wiped his hand across his face, his swollen knuckles leaving a trail of blood on his lips. "Tomorrow," I said, "during hard labour. We're all going in the chipping room. Get in there too. You'll see when we make our move. Just follow us." He looked at me, and for the first time I actually saw a hint of emotion. To my surprise, it resembled anxiety, there for a second and then gone. "What if I'm put somewhere else?" he asked. "You're not going without me." "Doesn't matter," I replied. "They don't check. Just get in there, room 3, stay close, and don't tell a soul, okay?" He didn't move, just stood there with his dark eyes fixed on mine. Then he turned and walked off, climbing back on his bench and watching the fight as if nothing had happened. The skull in the ring was on the floor, the 59er stomping on his chest, and I made my way from the gym as quickly as I could to escape the sound of snapping ribs. Back upstairs, we went through the last few details of the plan, with Toby posted outside to make sure there were no more eavesdroppers. There wasn't really much left to say, however, and after a period of silence, Z and Toby decided to head back to their cells for some rest. Neither Donovan nor I could face the thought of dinner, so we just lay on our bunks and waited for lights out. "You know what it means if we fail, don't you?" he asked. "Yeah, we die. In the most horrible way possible," he added. "Truly in the most horrible way possible." "I'm not sure if it really matters, though," I said quietly. Donovan protested, but I just carried on. "I mean, even if everything goes wrong and we end up in the hole, or worse, we still managed to beat Furnace." "How's that?" "Well, we figured a way out. We actually found a way of escaping. It doesn't matter if we make it or not. We still beat the system. Right now, Donovan. Right now. We're free." "I don't really get you," he said. "But I hear what you're saying. We'll be legends, man. Whatever happens." He didn't really understand, but then neither did I. It was just a feeling, a weight lifted from my chest. Furnace's walls seemed a little bit weaker, the air a little bit lighter, the space a little bit bigger. It was still the same place, but it didn't have the same power. We'd found a way to break it before it had found a way to break us. At least, that's what I thought when the cells locked and the prison went dark. Everything changed when I woke up some time later, deafened by the siren and bathed in a pool of blood-red light. Oh no. Shall I just carry on? I'll carry on. Let's finish it. Good job I made some tea. Taken. I sat bolt upright in my bed, my head spinning. It was the Bloodwatch, here for another harvest. I couldn't believe it. They couldn't be here. Not tonight. The crimson light made the entire prison shimmer like I was seeing it through a heat haze, as if the fires of hell were burning right beneath us. I stretched my neck and looked down into the yard as the vault door swung open, unleashing a series of screams and wheezes that could only come from the gas masks. "Alex!" came Donovan's voice from above me, laced with fear. "Just don't move, okay? For once, just stay in bed and keep your head down." I lowered myself back and pulled the sheets over my head. Donovan was right. Just stay quiet, stay hidden, and they passed right by. There was a series of wet cries as the wheezers split up, each heading for a different flight of steps. I pictured them jerking and convulsing as they made their way along the platforms, their piggy eyes picking out victims to be devoured. There was a scream. Distant. It was on the far side of the prison. The first Weezer had chosen. A second cry followed, like a dying bird from below us. 2 down. 3 to go. Another shriek, followed by a chorus of pleas from the chosen inmate. A fourth, this time way above, the sound echoing down the prison walls in case any of us missed it the first time around. Only 1 Weezer left. 1 more victim. Not us. I prayed, so softly I couldn't even hear myself. My breath hit the sheet over my mouth, the air stale and warm. Please, God, just 1 more night, not us. A scream, so close it could have been from inside my bed. I curled up even more tightly into my sheets. Stay quiet, stay hidden, they'll go away, they'll just go away. I heard another scream, but it wasn't from the gas mask. It was a cry of rage, of anger, of despair. It was Donovan. I pulled the sheets off my head and sat up to see the monster standing right outside the cell, all rust and stitches and glass eyes, all leather and syringes and dried blood. It had 1 hand in its pocket, and it pulled it free with a sucking sound. "No!" screamed Donovan. "No, no, 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 no!" Its soiled hand struck the bars of the cell, marking out a crude X on the metal. Then it slung back its twitching head and screeched, the sound quickly mimicked by its twisted siblings. I jumped out of bed and looked at Donovan. He was peeking from his sheets, his eyes like white moons against his dark skin, his mouth foaming. I'd never seen him like this before, filled with utter terror, and it broke my heart. "What do we do?" I asked. The Weezer had frozen, but it wouldn't be long before the black suits made their way here with their dogs. "Oh, which one of us is it taking?" Donovan didn't move, didn't speak. I ripped the sheets from him and he still didn't respond. Desperate, I grabbed his arms and hauled him out of bed. He was halfway over the edge before he realised what was going on, snapping out of his trance in order to flip himself over and land on the floor. "Donovan," I said. He looked at the Weezer, then at me. "What do we do?" "I don't know," he replied in a voice as soft as breath. "Which one of us has it picked?" "I don't know," he repeated. "You only know when the black suits come." I cursed, slapping my hands against my forehead. I should have been more scared, but for some reason my head was clear. I guess it was because it didn't feel real. I expected to wake up any second. I threw myself at the bars, finding myself face to face with the Weezer. But it was motionless, not even a twitch to show that it was still alive. The prison was plunged into darkness, and I backed away from the bars in panic. "Think!" I shouted as soon as the red light snapped back on again. "It can't end like this." "But it has," Donovan said. "It's come to nothing." I paced the cell, glancing down into the yard to see more figures emerging from the vault door. I counted 7 black suits, 2 dogs. Then, to my surprise, the warden strode into the middle of the yard, staring up at the cells. He'd never come out during the Blood Watch. Something was wrong. "They know," I said, my shoulders slumping. "They've come for us. They've probably got Z and Toby too." "No," replied Donovan. "That's Z's cell down there. No Weezer." I looked down and sure enough Z's cell was unmarked. I couldn't make out any sign of life in the bruised shadows, but I was sure Z would be watching me. Maybe the warden didn't know. Maybe this was just some sick joke, a perverse coincidence. The lights flickered, then went out again. The only sign I was still alive, the terrifying noises outside the cell. Growls and footsteps and wheezes. "Look," I said, taking Donovan's shoulders. "They only take 1 cellmate at a time, right? Right. Then one of us is left. We still go ahead with this, okay? One of us makes the break. Once I'm free, I'll go straight to the cops. Doesn't matter if they throw me back in here, just so long as they investigate. If I'm quick, I might be able to save you. If you hurry, you might be able to get back in time to save me." Donovan nodded as the lights rebooted. Then he flung his arms around me, squeezing me so hard I gasped for breath. "Thanks," he said, his eyes filling. "For what?" "Thanks for giving me hope." "It's not over yet," I said. I could hear footsteps crashing down the platform, the howl of the mutant dogs. "I know," he replied. Then they were there. A command from the black suit sent the cell door crashing open, and in the blink of an eye, the guard was inside. A massive hand wrapped around Donovan's throat, pulling the boy out as if he weighed nothing, holding him up above the ground. I threw myself forward, but the giant used his other hand to swipe me away. I felt like I'd been hit by a car, sliding across the floor and smashing into the bunks. By the time I got to my feet again, the cell door was rattling shut. "Donovan!" I shouted. The gas mask was sliding a needle from his belt, a syringe full of blackness and death, a cloud that swirled like a galaxy, full of flickers of yellow light. "No!" But it was too late. The Weezer stabbed the needle into Donovan's neck, and the boy went limp and silent. "You can't do this!" I shouted. "Donovan, I'll come for you! I'll come for you!" My words tried to give chase as the procession made its way down the platform, but they were powerless to stop this nightmare. I could do nothing but watch as Donovan and the other victims were dragged down the stairs and across the yard, my best friend disappearing through the vault door, swallowed by the shadows that would escort him to his death. The warden was the last to leave, and as he stepped through the door, he turned and stared up at the cells again. From this distance, his eyes were just two pools of blackness lost in the red leather of his face. But I could swear he was looking right at me. I felt my vision twist and flicker, 100 terrible images flashing before my eyes, blood and bone and teeth and chains and screams. Then the warden turned away, and the carnage ended. As the door closed behind him, I struggled to cling to my sanity, to my reason, to my consciousness, but it was no use. I collapsed to the floor, calling Donovan's name and wishing with all my heart that they had taken me instead. The final chapter. Break. Morning came reluctantly, afraid of breaching the darkness that embraced both the prison and my thoughts. I hadn't returned to sleep after Donovan was taken. I just sat on the bed at the mercy of a million different emotions, crying, then screaming, then pounding at the bars, then laughing hysterically at the night like a creature of madness. My last words to Donovan never left my head. "I'll come for you." My exhausted mind pictured me charging back into Furnace at the head of an army, shooting the black suits where they stood, stringing the warden up by his neck, pulling Donovan from his cell and embracing him with the same strength with which he'd held me. "I'll come for you," and I would. As soon as the lights came on, I was up and standing by the bars, staring out at the yard with cold eyes. It was like a piece of me had been taken along with Donovan, the side of me that felt compassion, that felt fear. All that was left was hatred. I was going to get out of Furnace, then I was going to burn it, so that nothing remained but a smoking crater filled with the corpses of its demons. The cell doors opened with a deafening rattle, and I made my way down into the yard along with hundreds of inmates. It was as if the other prisoners sensed something different about me too, an edge that hadn't been there before, like I would explode if anyone even touched me. They moved out of my way as I marched towards the canteen, throwing wary glances at me when they thought I wasn't looking, and turning their heads when they saw that I was. I was sitting at an empty table when Z ran up to me. He slid onto the bench opposite, checking over his shoulder. His face was pinched, his eyes still red with tears. "They took him," he said. He seemed like he wanted to say more, but gave up and hung his head. I didn't reply, just stared out across the trough room to see Gary taking a seat along with the skulls. He nodded at me, and I nodded back, and in that moment of symmetry, my expression was identical to his. Empty, inhuman. "I'll come back," I said, looking away. I promised him I would. I can't leave him. "So it's still on?" Z asked, raising his head. "It's still on." Toby met us just as we were leaving the trough room. He was red-faced and stressed. "My cellmate," he said through strangled breaths, "wouldn't let me out until he knew where we were going. I didn't tell him, Alex, but the whole prison knows we're up to something." "It doesn't matter," I replied. leading the boys across the yard. We joined the crowd for the chipping rooms, avoiding the inmates who were eyeballing us with a strange mixture of hatred and hope. Jimmy was there too, his sickly gaze never leaving me. I ignored them all, focusing on the task ahead. We had one shot at this, just one. If we messed up, then we were all dead. Slowly, the crowd shuffled through the passage into the equipment room. The black suit watched us all with his silver eyes, finger permanently on the trigger of his shotgun. I thought for a moment that he might be able to hear my pounding heart as I passed him, but he showed no sign of even noticing me. Inside the equipment room, I slammed on a helmet and lifted a pickaxe from the racks. Z and Toby did the same. I thought for a moment that Gary hadn't made it, but he came in at the tail end of the crowd, his eyes narrowed with the same sliver of anxiety I'd seen yesterday. He spotted us and the expression vanished. "Levels 1 to 3, room 1, bellowed the black suit, waving his shotgun towards the portal. "Rest of you into room 3, you know the drill." We headed into the chipping room, our hearts in our mouths. Every few steps I'd look up and meet the eyes of Z or Toby or Gary. It was like there was a line linking us, one that only we could see. Or maybe it wasn't that invisible. The looks from the other inmates were growing increasingly hostile, like they could sense how close we were to making a break for it, to leaving them to rot. We positioned ourselves near the front of the cavern, pulling our visors down to conceal the sweat that already ran freely down our faces. We started attacking the wall with the same way we always did, Z keeping an eye on the shadow that sat fat across the equipment room floor. As soon as that shadow disappeared, we would make our move. It seemed to take forever. We chipped and we hacked and we sweated, and all the time our blood pressure rose, our tempers frayed. Much longer, and I felt like my heart was going to implode. "Come on!" hissed Gary in between swings. "We gotta move now!" "We wait," I said, my voice heavy with an authority I never knew I possessed. "We leave when I say." He gripped his pickaxe so hard that his deformed knuckles went white, but he didn't argue. He just kept swinging and cursing. "Alex," hissed Z a few minutes later. "The guard, he's going." I looked to see the black shadow sweep across the floor of the equipment room as the guard disappeared into the first chipping hall. I turned and nodded to the 3 expectant, terrified faces in front of me, and after checking that nobody in the room was watching us, we walked calmly towards the door. So far, so good. It was all going to plan, until I heard a voice call out from behind us. I swung around to see Jimmy legging it across the cavern floor, his face twisted into a mask of panic. He didn't even wait until he was in earshot before shouting out, "Don't you dare! I know what you're doing." "We're not doing anything, Jimmy," I replied as calmly as I could. "Just working." He ran right up to me, then grabbed my collar with his bony fingers. The other prisoners in the room were turning to watch, looking at us like we'd just stabbed them in the back. "I knew it!" he spat. "You're doing it now. Take me with you or I scream. I swear I'll scream my head off." He never got the chance. From nowhere, Gary moved in, jabbing the handle of his pickaxe towards Jimmy's face. The wooden pole made contact with one of the most sickening sounds I've ever heard, and the boy crumpled, groaning. "Let's go," Gary said. "No time." I looked at Jimmy, struggling to get up and hold his broken nose at the same time. Then I turned and fled towards the equipment room. We rounded the corner to see that it was deserted, and it was all I could do not to cry out with joy. I skidded to the floor and yanked on the loose board, pulling it away from the wall. Z went to climb in, but Gary shoved him out the way, diving through the gap head first. Z followed, and it was just as Toby started climbing in that all hell broke loose. I heard panting behind me and turned to see Jimmy standing there, the front of his overalls drenched in blood. His whole body was shaking. He pointed at me, his eyes full of the strength that his body lacked. "Escape!" he said. His voice was weak, but the word hit me like a slap in the face. I saw him take a deep breath, then he repeated it with more force. "Escape!" "Jimmy!" I called out. "It's not too late, just come with us." But he wasn't thinking clearly. The blow to his head had scrambled his thoughts. All he cared about now was making sure we didn't leave. He called out again and again, each time the volume of his cry escalating until it became a shrill shriek that echoed around the equipment room. "Get in," I said to Toby, "now!" He hesitated a moment longer, then scrabbled past the loose board, vanishing into the darkness. Jimmy was still screaming the same word over and over again. I had seconds until the black suits appeared. Not even that. As I bent down to climb through the hole, I spotted the guard emerging from the first chipping room. The giant paused, his silver eyes squinting in the light as if he didn't quite believe what was happening. It was all the time I needed. By the time he'd raised his shotgun, I was halfway into the tunnel, the shot kicking up dust where my feet had been an instant before. Toby was waiting for me on the other side of the boards, his eyes so wide I thought they were going to fall out. I looked back into the equipment room to see the guard charging towards us, his vast body a blur. Behind him, coming through the door from the yard with equal speed, was another black suit. There was a sparking sound ahead from the other end of the tunnel. "Oh no," I said, my heart sinking. Gary had found the fuse. He was trying to light it. "Run!" We sprinted up the tunnel just as the black suits smashed through the boards behind us. They just charged right through the massive wooden planks, sending splinters flying into the air as they raised their shotguns again. I hurled myself to the ground as the guns fired, pulling Toby down with me, the shot slicing the air above our heads. Ahead, there was a hiss as the fuse lit. I watched the flame hurtle along the string, up the wall towards the gas balloons that were right above our heads. I hauled myself up, grabbing Toby's hand and throwing myself along the tunnel. Only a few more steps and we'd be free. But the black suits were too quick. Just as I saw the end of the tunnel ahead, I felt an iron grip around my throat, hoisting me from the floor. By the squawk from my side, I knew that Toby had been caught too. It didn't really matter now anyway. I watched the thin blue flame travel along the ceiling, almost brushing the first glove. We were going to burn. The black suit turned me around to face him, narrowing his silver eyes at me. It was Moleface, the same guard who had tormented me ever since that first day in the house, so long ago. His face split open into the shark smile I knew so well. "Got you," he said. Over his shoulder, the flame flickered, almost went out, then burned fiercely as it reached the first glove. I willed it on. At least if we died here, we'd take some of them with us. "No," I replied, grinning insanely back at my captor. "I've got you." The first glove swelled and burst into a ball of light and heat. Then the world exploded. Darkness into a radiance that burned my eyes. Silence into a thunder so intense it felt like my body had been crushed to dust. The rest of the balloons followed suit, the resulting fireball sweeping down the tunnel like the fist of God, a shockwave that catapulted us all into the cave. I blacked out for a moment, the sound of ringing in my ears, the only thing letting me know I was still alive. That and the pain, so agonising that it forced me to regain consciousness. I snapped open my eyes to see the tunnel in ruins, slabs of stone and a curtain of dust and flames where there had once been a passageway. Somewhere in the distance I could hear a siren and the sound of people shouting. But Donovan's plan had worked. There was now a wall of rock between us and them. I tried to get up, but I couldn't move. Fears of paralysis flooded my mind, the thought that I would have to lie here until the guards clawed their way through the demolished tunnel. But looking down, I saw a huge weight slumped across my legs. It was Moleface, although he was no longer a man in black, but a man of black. He had caught the brunt of the blast, the fire burning off his suit and leaving his body a charred mess. I realised that he'd probably saved me, shielding me from the flames, and I smiled at the irony of it. I tugged at my legs and finally managed to free them, using a nearby rock to pull myself up. My helmet lamp was smashed to smithereens, but the fires painted the cavern in a weak light. I made out a mangled shape in front of me, a broken boy that had once been Toby. It took me a moment to notice there was another person hunched over the scene. "Z?" I asked, peering into the gloom. The other boy stood and ran over to me. "Alex, Jesus, man, I thought you were dead." "It's Toby." "No, he's got a pulse, but he's smashed up pretty bad. Ain't no way he's getting into that river." "Gary?" "Ran ahead, the idiot," Z said. "I tried to stop him lighting the fuse, Alex. I really did. He just shoved me out of the way. Only a matter of time now before he finds the river." I limped over to Toby. His eyes were shut, but he was breathing weakly, a trail of blood running from the corner of his mouth. I knelt down beside him and touched his cheek, and very slowly he opened his eyes. Did we make it?" he asked as his vision focused. "Are we free?" I took his hand and squeezed it, but it just made him wince. "We made it," I said. "But you can't go any further, Toby. You'll die if you do." "I don't care," he answered. "I don't care. I just want to get out of here. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me." I looked at Z, but the boy just shrugged. "He's had it if he goes in the river," he said. Behind us I heard the sound of shifting rubble, a series of wet growls. It was the dogs. I could picture them tearing into the stone with their killer claws. It wouldn't take them long to break through. "He's had it if he doesn't," I said. "Let's get him up." I put my hand under Toby's armpit and pulled gently, Z doing the same on the other side. Together we managed to haul him up and keep him steady. He screamed as he tried to walk on his broken leg, but he managed to stay conscious. "Let's go," I said. We'd only just started walking when I heard a groan from behind us. I peered over my shoulder to see a shape rising out of the darkness, a giant hauling itself up from the debris and dust. It was Moleface. Somehow he wasn't dead. If he managed to get to his feet, then we were history. "Can you hold him?" I asked Z. The boy nodded, and I slipped out from under Toby's arm. I ran over to the injured man, looking around until I spotted a block of stone, light enough to lift, but heavy enough to do some damage. I hefted it above my head and was about to bring it down when the shape moved fast. It swung an arm out, catching me behind the knee and making my legs buckle. I collapsed to the floor, the block of stone almost braining me. Moleface grunted as he stood, wiping the blood from his eyes and patting out the fires that still burned on his exposed flesh. His injured face quivered and shook, and it took me a moment to grasp that he was attempting to smile. I tried to get up, but the giant placed his foot on my chest, pinning me like a butterfly. Then he bent down and picked up the same piece of rock I'd been struggling to lift, holding it effortlessly in one mammoth hand. "Alex!" came Z's voice behind me. I could barely breathe, let alone yell, but somehow I managed to answer. "Just go!" Was it really going to end like this? So close to escape, yet about to be crushed by the very guard who'd made it all happen, the one who'd shot Toby and framed me. I struggled against his weight, but it was just too much. I was distracted by a shape materialising behind the giant. Another face, a single gleaming silver eye. I couldn't believe it. The black suits were indestructible. I looked up and saw the rock held above my head, waiting for the moment it would fall and snatch my life away. At least it would be quick. I fixed the black suit with the fiercest gaze I could muster. I wouldn't go screaming and crying and begging for my life. The stone block dropped, smashing into pieces millimetres from my head. I thought for a moment that his aim had simply been poor, but something else was going on in the shadows above me. The second black suit had his burned hands around the throat of his twin, a grip so fierce that it forced Moleface down onto his knees. With the weight off my chest, I rolled to my feet, backing away but not taking my eyes off the scene. Moleface threw an elbow behind him, connecting with his attacker's hip so hard that it sent a crack echoing around the cavern. But the man wouldn't let go, tightening his grip around his victim's neck. Gradually, Moleface's flailing arms dropped to his sides, his body tumbling to the rock. The other guard stood unsteadily for a moment, then crashed earthward as well. I noticed that his injuries were even more extreme than Moleface's. Without his suit, I saw that the man was just a mass of scars, some still containing stitches. Under the skin, muscles bulged and twitched helplessly, as if trying to escape the broken body. I didn't understand what had just happened, but there was no time to try to work it out. I was about to make my way back to Z when the giant spoke to me. "Alex," he said. The voice was as deep and booming as always, but there was no malice in it this time, no evil. He sounded scared. The figure turned his head to me, and I saw that only one of his eyes remained silver. The other was normal, a pale green that looked at me in desperation. It was too dark to see clearly, but I thought I recognised that eye, and the look it threw me, fierce and defiant. "Alex," the guard gurgled through a mouthful of blood. The voice raised and lowered its pitch like it was breaking. "Don't forget your name." "What?" I asked. "If they catch you, just don't forget your name." "Come on!" yelled a voice behind me. I heard the scrabbling from the tunnel. The dogs were getting nearer. "Who are you?" I asked. But I didn't need to. I knew that voice. I knew that eye. A massive explosion rocked the other side of the cavern as Gary blew the hole, filling the entire room with light. I saw past the guard's twisted face, his stitched skin and spasming muscles. I saw the grapefruit-sized birthmark on his arm, now so familiar. "Monty," I said, moving towards him. But it was too late. With a sigh, the boy, lowered his head, his one silver eye fading along with the dying light of the explosion. "Come on!" came Z's voice again. I ran back to them, my head spinning so fast I thought I was going to be sick. The scrabbling and growling behind us was growing louder by the second, and we hobbled across the uneven ground as fast as we could. Fueled by fear, we took less than a minute to find the crack in the rock. It was no longer a sliver. The explosion had ripped a massive hole in the floor, and way below it raged a river. We walked to the edge of the drop and peered down. It was impossible to tell how far below the water was, its flow just a grey streak in the shadows. But the air was sweet and cool, the foam settling on our skin and easing the pain of our wounds. There was no sign of Gary. "You sure you want to do this?" I asked Toby. "You can't even stand, let alone swim." "I don't care," he replied. "I just want to get out of here." I nodded. "You ready?" asked Z. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. In that second, 1,000 thoughts flashed through my mind. The day I was caught, the day I arrived here, the guards, the dogs, the warden, Kevin being slaughtered, Ashley falling to his death, Monty taken and twisted and turned into a monster, into a black suit. Then I thought about Donovan, snatched in the middle of the night, awaiting the same horrible fate. "I'll come for you." "I'm ready," I said. Taking one last look at Z and Toby, I leaned over the edge and let the cold air embrace me. There was nothing but death behind me, and probably nothing but death ahead. But at least this way, I would be free. And smiling at the thought, I jumped. The end. What happens next? I'll carry on reading. I can't stop there, can I? I hope you enjoyed that. I really loved getting back into the world of Furnace. It's been so long since I wrote those books, and it's just a real joy to be back in that world with Alex and Z and Toby and Donovan, of course. I hope you'll continue to read along with me as we enter the world of Solitary. I'll be back probably tomorrow, maybe Friday. I'll see how it goes since I did a mammoth one today. But probably tomorrow, because I really want to find out what happens next. I kind of do know, but I want you to find out. Well, you probably know too. But let's go there anyway. Okay, have a great day. I hope the sun is shining where you are, and I hope you're safe and well, and that lockdown is treating you okay. And see you soon. Thank you. Bye.